Hello everyone, Pioneer and Apple here, and we are in the final stretch, the last 2 episodes of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We've had a pretty consistently good run, not anything amazing, but a serviceable family adventure with a lot of heart put into it. And I have to admit, even Wim has gotten a little more bearable as we've gone forward. So why don't we see how this series ends with episodes 7 and 8? Episode 7 starts like 6, back on At-Atin, where the parents are intercepted attempting to send a signal through the planet's barrier to the children, actually managing to do so. Each parent getting a nice little heroic moment, including Wendell, which makes the characters feel more invested in the story. Although it is unfortunate that Neil and KB's parents are barely characters, Wendell and Farah being the only ones to be active in the finale. Back on the Onyx Cinder, the kids are mostly having fun as they get closer to At-Atin, but Wim is being the worst character again, as he wallows, knowing life will go back to normal, which is a normal enough character arc, but it just adds another layer of annoyance to the cheesecake that is Wim. The pirates arrive before them, Brutus thinking the barrier is the planet, but Jod, with the help of 33, manages to weasel his way into getting an exploratory ship sent out, learning the planet is indeed beyond the barrier. But the ship doesn't last long as the poor squid man is shot down inside. Brutus has had it with Jod, but the random lady from before senses the Onyx Cinder coming into orbit, Jod finally figuring out the answer, that the ship is somehow keyed to get through the barrier. The kids aren't able to escape though, as the pirates use their tractor beam to capture the ship, Brutus once again making sure Jod knows his place. Jod manages to take control of the crew thanks to the kids using the ship's claw to epically capture Brutus, but Jod is onto the kids, executing Brutus, brutally, and taking the ship. This is a great moment, not only cementing Jod as the villain, but making him more intimidating, as all he's done up to this point is run around and yell, as I think many could still be on the fence, unsure whether he would have actually killed Fern in episode 5. Jod gets back into his rip-off Mandalorian pirate garb, and in a spot of ironic timing, the beacon that sent the parents' message finally makes contact. The parents each getting their moments to say their piece. Even Wendell getting a little emotional moment, which causes Wim to stupidly attack. But thankfully, in Wim's tantrum, he allows SM-33's code some wiggle room. Fern proclaiming herself captain again, and SM-33 saying good enough.
I'm afraid it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's a family show, so whatever, but come on, it's a little stupid, right? The Onyx Cinder manages to escape the pirate ship thanks to 33's great piloting, but they're followed into the barrier by 2 more ships, and this whole sequence looks good and is played pretty well. Us finally getting a look at the barrier, the gas obscuring the same satellites we saw at Akron, that zap any passing ship without the right codes.
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
And with a nice quiet moment music-wise, the kids finally see their home planet being locked into autopilot again. Now, I have to ask, the shots are beautiful and everything, but there's something nobody thought through. If the planet is contained within the barrier, how the fuck is there sunlight? There's no way there's a sun encased in the barrier along with At-Atin, so is there a satellite that beams light to simulate a day-night cycle? Because they never bring one up. And if that's the case, Akron is lucky to be close enough to a nearby star not to freeze over once their war broke out and the barrier fell. And just as they're starting to enjoy themselves, Jod comes in and beheads 33. And he isn't taking any shit. He is legitimately ready to kill these children. And I know Jude Law is a well-known actor, but I haven't seen him in much, so it's strange to call this the villain role of his lifetime. As even when the kids try to help him, he starts insulting them.
What? What? What exactly are you going to do? You're all weak. Weak, sheltered, spoiled children.
It's pretty well done, and although he uses a lightsaber, he doesn't have the same air as your typical Sith or Jedi villain. So even if his character archetype has been done before, it feels refreshing for Star Wars. On the planet, the parents are being interrogated by a droid, only for him to walk out like Joe Biden.
Stand by.
What was that?
And finally, we get to hear the voice of their overlord, the supervisor. notifying everyone that the incoming ship is meant to be taking cargo. I guess defaulting to how they used to receive ships before the Empire days? The ship is locked in and taken underground, just as the parents get a glimpse of the children, Jod making sure the children don't say a word, and the droids ferry him down to the Mint, and then offer to take him to the supervisor.
Supervisor, yes. Better than dealing with a droid.
Ironic.
The visual of the underground mint is impressive, and Jod thinks so too, as when it opens he enters and has a great scene as credits fall before him. It's a great character moment and is shot perfectly well. The parents arrive, finally reuniting with the children, which is a nice moment even if I don't really care for most of them. And the episode gets a pretty good cliffhanger ending as Jod approaches them and uses his lightsaber pretty closely to how Anakin activated it in Revenge of the Sith. So all in all, a pretty good penultimate episode that did a lot to set the characters up for the finale, even if only half of the parents take their part in the finale. We still get the scenes that should be there, and Jod really comes into his own here, as the main villain, who, considering he has been belittled by adults and children alike so often, really shouldn't be that intimidating. Now on to the finale, the start immediately undoing any tension the cliffhanger made when Jod turns the lightsaber off. He plays Jedi, his name not any less funny sounding when he says it here, and he uses his guys to get the children who could blow his cover out of the way, having them under Big Brother's monitoring and taken back home, except for Fern, who looks ready to gouge his eyes out. He has her and Farah accompany them to the supervisor, having both of them in arm's reach should he need a hostage. Back home with Wim and Wendell, the adult seems to miss copious red flags with his son's behaviour in general, and when it comes to Jod, and proceeds to yell at him for once again spouting off about the great work. Which we don't learn about, so I just have to assume it's the whole making credits deal. But Wim actually comes to a good revelation only for his father to keep his ignorance, for fuck's sake. Meanwhile, Fern is still trying to kill Jod with her mind, as they finally reach the supervisor, who turns out to be a droid. Not what I was expecting, but with how regimented and step-based the society is, it makes sense. And although not positive or negative, the performance from Stephen Fry is such a wonderful voice from someone repeatedly accused of being a real dickhead. Jod isn't that phased and introduces himself as a Jedi, an emissary, playing the role decently, but goes a bit far in pressing freedom for the pirate ship. But this is quite a clever moment, being post-Empire. This means the last contact that the planet had to the outside universe was when the Republic was restructured into the Galactic Empire. So the last message they were sent was around Order 66, meaning they think the Jedi are traitors. Fern takes the moment to call Jod out, but he manages to get lucky and assassinates the supervisor, deactivating the droids and losing power to the whole of At-Atin. This is good for the story, but come on. People need to stop building their robots' brains right behind their weakest point, the glass of the eyeball. If he had stabbed anywhere else, the droids probably would have got him. Why aren't the key components for such an important machine in the best defended area? Is it a feint? Reverse psychology? Farah wants to keep the barrier in place, and Jod tells her it's alright. He just wants to take the credits and go. But Fern knows better, almost getting her head chopped off for it. With Jod's word, Steve Urkel flies the ship past the barrier. And with the power now out, it allows the kids to escape their homes. Wim getting his dad up to speed, but getting nowhere on that front, as the pirates start ransacking. And we get another clip of Neil in the bath, who is on this writing staff. That was a weird rhyme. KB's parents are nowhere to be seen as she watches the bombardment, and along with Neil they pick up Wim to go save Fern, planning to call for help from Kim, abandoning Wendell.
Hey, Wim, come back here! Come back here!
The riding sequence is pretty cool, Wendell stealing a bike and following them. And although there are one or two dodgy moments of CGI, it's all fairly well put together. And although he had to be forced, it is nice to see Wendell stepping up, even if we don't get any exploration into why he is the way he is. I feel that would have fleshed him out and made me less incensed anytime he opened his mouth. We actually do get to see KB's parents as she tells them to hide, and the riders actually make it to the ship, although losing Neil in the process. I see that Disney got better considering I don't remember the speeder chase from the Book of Boba Fett being very decent. The ship can't take off without the power releasing the clamps, so Wim and Wendell head to the supervisor's tower to turn it on. Wendell actually getting a solid badass moment.
All the power relays are routed through.
the supervisor's tower.
Can you turn them on?
Son, you are talking to a level 7 systems coordinator. Get the bike.
Neil plans to get KB some cover and makes it to the school's laser, as seen on At Akron, which helps validate that detour. Fern is trying to kick her mum up the backside into actually taking some initiative, with a good speech. I still think she should have been the focus character instead of Wim being the main protagonist. Fern plans to get a droid's weapon while Jod starts posturing, commanding all residents to be his slaves. Okay, I'm gonna get to a major complaint I have with this show, and that's Jod's characterization. He works well as a sleazy guardian to the children, he works well as a hateable yet fun villain, as he gives a great performance in the later half of the show. But at the end of this, he sort of gives up when he realizes he's been beaten, like he has some sort of code. And his backstory, we'll learn soon, supports this, but his actions throughout the whole show, like making me feel he'd really kill these children, and not having any meaningful connective moments, bar the one with Wim where he tells him to buck up, they don't fit with his heel turn at the end. They either needed to make him the relenting villain who lets his greed outweigh his morals in the big moments, such as finding the mint, but has a heartful connection to the kids that gets him to stand down at the end, or a relentless grubby greedy pirate who can act nice but is ready to kill or sell a child at a moment's notice. You can't have both, Disney. Wim and Wendell get another cool chase scene, and make it to the control room, Wim bluffing Jod not very well, but it's entertaining at least, while Wendell releases the clamps. Jod tries to kill Wendell, but stops Fern before she can incapacitate him. KB is able to take off though with the help of 33, while Neil distracts Steve Urkel, giving KB, the best character, the most heroic moment. She manages to breach the barrier and get a message to Kim, but is unfortunately shot back down by pirate fighters, the ship plunging into a building, and trying to trick us all into thinking she's killed. Jod goes all, "It didn't have to be like this," having now been switched to the clone of himself that actually shirks child death. And in revenge, Fern tries to destroy the barrier, being given a big shiny lever to pull, but Farrah pussies out, giving Jod enough time to stop her. We get a little action, but Jod puts Wendell at risk to stop Wim finishing the job. Once again, Jod switches to give his sad backstory, having been trained by a hiding Jedi under Order 66, him having hardened his heart when the Empire hunted her down. A good character motivation, but once again feels far too confused, now not wanting to hurt anyone. The performance makes up for it, but god did I want a definitive answer. Does he or does he not want to murder children to get what he needs? Because he's ready to do it over and over again, and then is suddenly remorseful about it. I mean, that could work if he were all, "I don't want to do this, but you're making me." He legitimately wants to kill them in moments, like last episode, so once again, pick one or the other. Or learn how to make a show longer than 8 episodes to show and justify why the character could be a mix of both. Wendell goes badass, beating Jod up, and this whole action scene is pretty badass, if a bit overstated. Fern and Wim keep the saber at bay while Wendell tries to destroy the barrier, Jod almost ripping his hand apart, and it's only Farrah finally getting off her ass that saves the day. So Jod just gives up. What?
Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
He could kill all 4 of them right now and escape, but he just decides enough is enough? He doesn't even know how close the X-Wings are. So the barrier goes down in a good visual, and the New Republic X-Wings take the pirates down and free At-Atin. Jod letting the 4 flee as Wim calls out to him as if to help him. What the fuck is happening? Why is Wim suddenly so nostalgic and caring about the pirate that just tried to kill and enslave them all? Although I have to admit the shots of him giving up and the ship crashing are beautiful. The gang speed off to the ship following the yellow brick road of credits, and like Scrooge McDuck, KB and SM-33 slide out relatively unharmed, and escaping before the ship slams down, and that's the ending? I mean, I get it, Wim wants adventure and he watches a Republic cruiser longingly. It's nice, but come on! Yes, the end credits are a great visual, but what happens to At-Atin? What happens to any of these characters? What's going on with Hayna, Kim, and friends they made along the way? Or their parents? How their lives are changed by this adventure is a pretty important part of showing how these characters have grown and why we should give a shit. and it's not there. This episode is written very entertainingly, but it must have been written either by AI or someone with his hand around a bottle of scotch. So, that was Skeleton Crew. Overall, it's a pretty good family adventure show. Very Goonies, very Indiana Jones, but unlike some shows, it uses Star Wars to its story's advantage, instead of letting it get bogged down in references and needing to reference other things so much it becomes a different show in the second half. The characters were entertaining for the most part, but some could have had their arcs touched up. Jod, as said before, Wim and Wendell had their moments, but with how anti-women some Star Wars fans have been, it's funny that KB and Fern stole the show as being some of the most consistent characters that were still interesting in writing and performance most of the way through. The show was visually pleasing, no music stood out as bad or distracting. I think this is a good direction for Star Wars. More of this and less of the Acolyte, even if there were things that I did like in that show. Still don't know what these coloured things in the Lego set are, but there was more good than bad here, even if it wasn't amazing. I mean, I ranted about a lot of details in that final episode. So I'll give Star Wars The Adventures of KB and Fern, Skeleton Crew, 6.5 to 7 out of 10, and I'd be seated to see these characters again in a season 2 or somewhere else, but mostly KB, Fern and Jod. But let's be honest, if we do see them in the Star Wars universe outside of a season 2, it's likely to either be Jod or Wim. Thank you everybody for watching my final review of Skeleton Crew until they maybe do a season 2. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, and consider subscribing to the channel if you do, ring that notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.